character trait now. I don't really have much to do today. I'm getting tested for COVID for protocols to make sure.
Rachel Zegler was once positioned to be Disney's next shining star, cast in the lead role of the live-action Snow White, a film backed by the full force of a billion-dollar studio and supported by a legacy that had charmed audiences for generations. What should have been her fairy-tale breakthrough instead unraveled into a complete disaster. Rather than receiving the expected praise, the movie was torn apart online, stumbled at the box office, and quickly found itself relegated to the digital graveyard of Disney+. At the very heart of this downfall stood Rachel herself, no longer celebrated for her on-screen magic, but increasingly recognized for her political outbursts and uncomfortable interviews. The trouble, however, didn't begin on opening night. Signs of turbulence were there long before the first trailer ever hit the internet. From the moment Rachel started speaking out, about the story, about Disney, about politics, her words began to alienate people. Instead of carefully acknowledging the original Snow White, she openly dismissed it, labeling the classic as outdated and problematic. For many longtime fans, that attitude felt like a slap in the face. Disney had hoped to recapture nostalgia while layering in a modern twist, but the lead actress mocking the foundation of the story set the wrong tone from the start. Adding to the fire, reports emerged of behind-the-scenes tension. Rumors circulated that Rachel and Gal Gadot, the beloved Wonder Woman herself, were not exactly on friendly terms during filming. Sources hinted that the atmosphere on set was strained, with creative disagreements and personality clashes overshadowing collaboration. Meanwhile, Disney's own marketing leaned heavily on buzzwords like inclusion and representation, presenting the project as a milestone moment. Yet critics argued that in chasing a cultural statement, the studio had let authentic storytelling and genuine chemistry fall by the wayside. By the time the film finally reached theaters, the damage was irreversible. Audiences showed little interest, seats were left unfilled, box office numbers plummeted, and when the title limped onto Disney+, streaming figures reflected the same dismal response. What had been pitched as a revival of the studio's most iconic fairy tale ended up as one of Disney's most painful missteps in recent memory. For Rachel, the fallout was just as brutal. Rather than taking a step back, she doubled down, using the moment to launch into more political commentary. She attributed the backlash and the sudden decline in casting opportunities not to the film's shortcomings but to her willingness to speak her mind. According to her, Hollywood operates with a double standard. Men can share political views openly without losing work, while women face punishment when they do the same. It was not the first time she voiced this belief, but now, as the roles and opportunities dwindled, the message carried a different weight. In a recent statement, Rachel went so far as to declare that Hollywood has become unrecognizable, a reflection of her growing frustration with an industry that once seemed poised to crown her its next great leading lady, but instead left her stranded in the wake of a fairy tale gone terribly wrong. She pointed fingers at the industry for abandoning diversity, bowing to political pressure, and punishing those who speak out for their beliefs. While that message resonated with a few, many saw it as pure deflection. Instead of owning up to the missteps she made during the Snow White press tour and acknowledging how she alienated a large portion of the audience, she tried to spin the narrative into something nobler. Not that her career suffered because she mishandled a major film, but that she was being silenced for caring about justice. The problem is, Hollywood has never been apolitical. Actors have spoken out for decades, Robert De Niro, Alec Baldwin, Julia Roberts, and countless others, but they understood how to play the game. Rachel didn't. At the peak of her career, when she had the biggest spotlight she had ever been given, she chose to challenge the very system that was promoting her. Instead of rallying fans, she pushed them away. Instead of showing grace under fire, she poured fuel on the flames. At that time, Rachel Zegler was being courted by major studios, reading top-tier scripts, and gracing red carpets alongside A-listers. Now, she's working on small indie films with modest budgets and limited releases, projects so under the radar that most people won't even hear about them. One of her rumored current films, co-starring Marissa Tomei, supposedly has a budget of under $10 million, which is a massive step down from Disney-level productions. But the bigger loss isn't the money, it's the relevance. The buzz is gone, the spotlight has faded, and the momentum that once carried her forward has stalled. Even Rachel seems to sense this shift. In an interview, she admitted feeling as though she's no longer in Hollywood's valued age bracket, an odd statement from someone still in her early 20s. Beneath the comment, though, it sounded less about age and more about regret, as if she were quietly acknowledging that she may have burned too many bridges far too soon. And perhaps the doors she once assumed would always remain open have slowly, almost silently, closed one by one while she was too busy trying to win political arguments instead of winning over audiences. There is some truth in what she says about the industry being harsh, especially toward women. Hollywood has always been brutal in its expectations, scrutinizing everything from age to appearance to personal behavior. But Rachel didn't simply fall victim to that system. She actively pushed back against it, called it out, and then acted surprised when it pushed her away. The truth is, studios are not just looking for talent, they want stars who can sell tickets, not stir controversy. One of the most infamous examples came when she said, "If you support Donald Trump, I don't want your business." That remark, ripped from a broader context, became a viral flashpoint. In a country where millions still support him, that single sentence was enough to alienate a massive portion of potential viewers. Families who might have taken their children to see Snow White suddenly decided to stay home, some even openly boycotting the film. For many, it marked a turning point. Rachel wasn't just expressing her views, she seemed to be condemning theirs. And no matter how strongly she believed she was right, that kind of approach never works in an industry where your livelihood depends on public goodwill. What makes it even more complicated is that other outspoken actors, like Pedro Pascal, who has made equally bold and even more provocative political statements, managed to keep their careers intact. The difference was perception. Rachel came across as ungrateful, self-righteous, and condescending, and those traits only felt more glaring when the movie flopped. Instead of appearing brave or principled, she appeared combative and detached from the audience she was supposed to charm. Now that the initial storm has passed, Rachel finds herself in an odd kind of limbo. She hasn't been fully cancelled, but neither has she remained desirable in the eyes of Hollywood power players. The silence speaks volumes. Her phone isn't ringing with offers from major studios, and the once steady momentum that carried her career forward has slowed to a crawl. In this business, that's often the deadliest fate of all. Because when your momentum wanes, there's always someone younger, hungrier, and easier to market waiting right behind you, ready to step into the spotlight you just lost before Rachel can steady her footing and speak freely again. Another actress who says all the right things will likely step in, charm the press, and smile through the storm. Rachel may still believe that standing by her convictions was the right thing to do, but in an industry where appearances and performance often matter more than truth, doing what feels right doesn't always mean doing what is smart. Her story is already being passed around Hollywood as a cautionary tale of how quickly things can unravel when a star forgets that every word and every gesture is under a microscope. She had all the advantages: a coveted Disney lead role, a rapidly rising public profile, and the full backing of the industry. Yet when she spoke, it often felt like she was speaking against the audience instead of to them. Audiences didn't want a lecture, they wanted an escape, a story, a bit of magic. There is an unspoken rule in the entertainment world: let the work speak first. The legends of the industry earned the right to speak freely only after proving they could capture audiences' hearts. Rachel seemed to skip that step, striding into the spotlight ready for a fight before she had built enough goodwill to withstand one. Meanwhile, Disney was grappling with its own backlash. The Snow White remake wasn't just a commercial disappointment, it became a symbol of the company's identity crisis. Critics accused Disney of pushing messaging at the expense of storytelling, of lecturing instead of enchanting, and audiences felt talked down to rather than swept away. Streaming numbers slid, trust eroded, and the brand struggled to find its footing. Against that backdrop, Rachel's words amplified the sense that the film was more about politics than story. What she may have overlooked is that winning hearts must come before winning arguments. Once audiences stop rooting for you, it's almost impossible to pull them back. And while her controversies weren't only about politics, they were about timing, delivery, and the impression that she embodied a broader cultural shift prioritizing statements over storytelling. Still, she hasn't disappeared. She's working, still visible online, still maintaining a presence. But the spotlight that once seemed destined to grow brighter now flickers, leaving the question of whether she can rebuild trust, or if Hollywood has already moved on. Still unapologetically political, Rachel now carries a different kind of energy, less fiery defiance, more weary frustration. Snow White ended up as the poster child for what happens when a studio loses touch with its audience, and fair or not, Rachel bore the brunt of the backlash. The tragedy is that her talent has never been in question. Even her critics admit she can act, sing, and command a stage. But in Hollywood, talent alone has never guaranteed longevity. Grace, timing, and strategy matter just as much, and in Rachel's case, those pieces didn't align when she needed them most. The roles she's being offered today reflect the industry's uncertainty about her future. In a recent interview, she spoke candidly about dark times in Hollywood, lamenting how studios are retreating from diversity and how it feels as though progress is being undone. The disillusionment in her words was obvious. Beneath the bold declarations and the political edge, there seemed to be a young actress realizing, perhaps for the first time, that the spotlight can be just as punishing as it is dazzling if you don't know how to stand in it. Instead of leading blockbusters, she's now taking on restricted releases, short films with limited audiences, and even silent roles that barely register with the public. It's time for Rachel to change her direction. Some may frame this as just a brief setback, while others see it as the consequence of a poorly planned climb to the top. The truth is, the next few years will decide whether Rachel Zegler cements herself as a lasting name in Hollywood or fades into memory as little more than a headline from Disney's messy Snow White chapter. The industry loves redemption stories, but a comeback will demand more than activism or bold statements. It will require her to choose roles that remind audiences why she was chosen in the first place, projects that showcase her talent rather than her politics. It will also call for humility, distance from the controversy